Good afternoon. Thank you, Josh. Okay, work out this clicker. I really like digging big holes. This is an example of some of my early work. I'm on the left, shift boss on the right, which is my older brother. Now, if I cast a critical eye over this, as a mining engineer now, it's pretty shoddy work. No consideration for wall control, geotechnical parameters, no thought on water ingress, no access in, no access out, just a mess. In my opinion, at least, I've got better at this, and I've made a career now at getting really good at making big holes. I'll go out on a limb and I'd say that I think most of the folks here at IMARC are pretty keen on making big holes too. Now, as an industry, we're evolving into deeper deposits, higher strip ratios, and we need to move with a tenacity to stay ahead of the cost curve, deliver value, and keep our operations productive. That means the holes are getting bigger. So, it's critically important that we keep digging big holes. Critically important. But we have to earn the right with our communities to continue doing so. So thanks, Josh. My name's Johnny Miln, Group Manager, Thiess Rehabilitation, and today I want to talk through some of our insights into post-mining transformation. So first, I just want to set the scene in Australia. There are 350 registered operating mines in the country, a further 200 in care and maintenance. In Australian history, there are less than 30 successful examples of mine closure. And before you give yourself a pat on the back for those, most of them are from the 19th century and don't really count. In the next 15 years, there's another circa 240 registered mines that are expected to reach their economic limits and move into closure or their next transition phase. So what we're looking at here is circa 800 operations in the next 15 years where there's a liability, and in Australia there is not one single complete relinquishment example of a large-scale surface operating mine. Not one. So just process that for a moment. When we look at our current operating areas around the country in major mining zones, so Pilbara, Hunter Valley, Bowen Basin, for example, the typical ratio between disturbed land and rehabilitated land is in the order of 10 to 15%. Some are higher, some are lower, and there's really great work out there happening, but nonetheless, the average is in the order of 10 to 15% ratio. Now, I haven't opened this chat with these statistics to shame, but what I really want to highlight and perhaps get the creative juices thinking on is that there is work to be done. We need to deliver safe, stable, non-polluting and cost-effective solutions to prove that we are worthy community partners to keep delivering the resources that the world needs. And I think we can spearhead that in Australia. So Thiess, I'm from Thiess Rehab. How do we fit into this picture? Well, we're bloody fantastic at digging big holes. We are the world's largest mining services provider. And as a byproduct of those services we've been delivering over time, we've got really good, evolving with our clients at delivering rehabilitation services. So since 2007, we've delivered 12,500 hectares of mine rehabilitation. And for context, that's on a scale similar to many of the major mining houses in Australia. In 2022, we took the step as a business to create a standalone post-mining transformation service in Thiess Rehabilitation. And across our group companies in Thiess, Macca, RTL and PyBar, we've got a real depth in capability in that post-mining transformation landscape. That range from our engineering core to design and optimization services, bulk earthworks from our mining origins, civil projects, and even into some of the post-mining land uses that are more alternate or emerging. So bottom right here, you can see Kidston, where Pybar completed the raise bores on the project. And today, I want to talk through some of our insights from the Muswellbrook project in the Hunter Valley, where Thiess Rehabilitation, just Thursday last week, completed rehabilitation works on the site. So Muswellbrook is located in the Upper Hunter Valley, some 3 hours northwest of where we are at IMARC today. In 1944, the Thiess brothers commenced open-cut mining at the Muswellbrook project. At the time, that was the first open-cut coal project in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's almost poetic that some 8 decades later, Thiess Rehabilitation was engaged by Idemitsu to complete rehabilitation on the project. Now we can see the pit here, and I'll go through some statistics to help just frame what we've been doing on the project. This was a design and construct scope, and engineering led by the front from us. So as part of that opportunity, against a reference design, we were able to reduce the total material movement required to complete the project by 20%, which was a huge saving to our prospective client in Idemitsu. We held statutory control on the project. The mine itself had finished its economic life and didn't look or need to keep the same governance team. So by Thiess coming in and having that statutory control, that enabled them to downscale and have us run the project holistically. That's also a service that we are able to offer in most jurisdictions around the country. The post-mining land use for this project was pasture and native ecosystems, with slopes at 25%. Now, as miners, most of us start to get pretty itchy feet and a bit uncomfortable when you start talking about slopes past 10%. It's just what we're used to working with. In the Hunter Valley, geomorphic landform design typically ranges from 10 to 18%. So for us, 25% was a real key consideration in how we ran the project safely, downstream services, and the gear that we were running on these slopes. Small trucks, tractors, spreaders, it all needed to be very carefully considered. Now, as with any major mining project, you've got a series of critical hazards that need to be managed. Muswellbrook was no different. There are a couple that really stood out in this project. If you look on the top right-hand side of the pit, we've got the northeastern wall, and down to the base of the pit void, that was 225 metres height differential. So there's some really significant geotechnical sequencing and challenges that needed to be managed with water, silt, historical voids, buttressing, sequencing, where dozers and trucks and shovel planning needed to work hand in hand throughout. And the other piece that you may have noticed as we zoomed in is that Muswellbrook is really close. And one of the things that we encountered on this project was spontaneous combustion. So for those not in the mining game all the time, that's prolonged oxidation on coal, bursts into flames. Creates significant smoke issues. So we're looking to manage safety of our operators, but also off-site impacts to the community very close by. Now, I mentioned that mining started in 1944 with the Thiess brothers. Muswellbrook coal project itself started in 1907. So it's got a plus 100-year history that we're looking at here. It's probably not a surprise then to find that the records for the project aren't perfect. We didn't have perfect survey records of where everything sat. And from an engineering perspective, this created a really fascinating challenge in how we went about some aspects of the project. Mining engineers like straight lines, simple plans, and ones that we know that can be followed consistently. What this project pulled out of us was the need to get creative with our engineering. So the area that we're looking at didn't have any base records of where's the clean material, what's the depth of carbonaceous material, with old ROM stockpiles, CHPP locations. So it was somewhat a design by excavation, and we ended up pulling out 3 times the amount of material from this zone than we otherwise expected at the beginning of the job. Now what that meant for us was a need to constantly evolve the design and optimization of design through the project and make sure we had appropriate inert capping material by the end of the job. You can see also here on the right hand side of the image natural watercourses flowing through. So as we went through each stage of the excavation, as with any mine, it was really important to manage mine effective water and clean water appropriately throughout. So to help further frame the type of work that we've done and what it looks like afterwards, I've got a before and after. And before I give you the big reveal, I'll sort of a couple notes around the type of work that we're doing here. So not just typical rehab, as you may know, of, hey, bit of dozer push, throw some topsoil down and put some seed on it. This was a complex jigsaw puzzle to unwrap from the geotech sequencing side of things and to achieve 25% slopes from in situ high walls. So that involved blasting, load and haul, and then the dozing activities, followed by the downstream works. So on the project, we delivered 1.2 million cubes of blasting, which is on the far western wall as you see it in this picture, to help achieve the design slopes. We delivered 7.3 million cubes of dozing and around 5 million cubes of truck and shovel material. Now, not every hectare of rehab is born equal. So if you think about typical truck and shovel projects, the amount of cubes per hectare is somewhere in the order of 10 to 20,000 cubes a hectare. When you're dealing with a large void like this and destacking these high walls, it's actually, for this project, was in excess of 70,000 cubes a hectare. So whilst the total number of hectares was not that huge, the amount of effort and incremental work that went into achieving this structure was monumental. Okay, so the after. So as I mentioned earlier, on Thursday last week, we completed this project on time, to a high standard, and recordable injury free under our statutory control from the start to the end of the project. Now that's something of which we're extremely proud, particularly given the diverse nature of activities that were involved in the project. So following on from the bulk earthworks, we delivered around 19 kilometres of contours and 3.5 kilometres of drains, so geofab lined and rock armoured drains. And with any of this work, like civil or mining work generally, quality control was really important to make sure that we built it to standard and that we could move on to the next stage of the process. So to help facilitate that, Thiess brought in our rehabilitation specific inspection test plan regime. I'm glad I said that because it's really hard to say those words together. Now that's something that we've developed in the Hunter and more broadly afield, and it's been recognised and published by the New South Wales Resource Regulator as best practice and part of how we do business going forward in all our rehab projects. Okay, so in brief, what do we think are the key takeaways for mine operators, mine holders in rehabilitation looking forward off the back of Muswellbrook and other projects that we've been working on? I've summarised that into 3 key components: scale, innovation and partnerships. Scale. So it sounds obvious, but scale is a key enabler of economies at scale. And I think this is a notable talking point in rehab because there's perhaps a challenge in our mindset in how we've operated as an industry historically. Intermittent campaigns, just-in-time campaigns, probably aren't really going to satisfy the work that we need to do to make good on our legacy, increasing legacy and regulatory commitments which are increasing. Now I acknowledge that that's not always possible. There's budget constraints, business planning constraints, space constraints, resource constraints that mean that you may not be able to go out tomorrow and engage a party to deliver 500 hectares of rehab in the next 2 years. But I'll reiterate that in our experience, projects that co-design and think about projects at scale over a reasonable term with appropriate commercial models almost every time come up with an optimised cost solution for the proponent. Innovation. So just walking around this week, it's easy to just absorb some of the evolving pace of technology and what it might mean for mining. And I tried to think here, hey, what are the things that we see have impacted mine rehabilitation over recent years? And the obvious one, really quickly, that I can't go past is drones and UAV technology. Now that's been a transformational thing in mining generally over the last 10 to 15 years. But it's not just a survey aspect in mine rehab, and we've been running now aerial seeding campaigns and aerial fertiliser campaigns. And what we learnt through that process is it's delivered us improved speed, cost and flexibility outcomes, particularly with seeding campaigns, in that we're able to target weather events and move nimbly in a way to seed directly prior, and we just couldn't do that with old methods. So I can see this only getting better. There are definitely constraints around size of area that you're working with, and some of the seeds that we're working with. So native seeds don't necessarily flow through the hoppers as well, depending on their size and shape. But every year it's getting better, and I see that this will just continue to be something that will change the way that we do things. In the same vein, automated vegetation and erosion modelling. You can have a drone come out of a box and map your site, fly back into that box and tell you, hey, how are you performing over the last 6 and 12 months? And that's, again, also only just going to get smarter as we feed more data into it. Now this picture here is the Lake Vermont Semi-Autonomous Dozer Control Room. Now, or SATs for short. In this control room we have 2 ROSs, or remote operating stations, that can each control 3 to 4 dozers. Now, I think the value case for SATs in mine rehab is monumental, undeniable. That's a big call. Why should you believe me? I'm just a guy that likes to dig holes. But this is derived from my perspective, from boots on the ground, lived empirical experience with Thiess. We are one of the largest global proponents of SATs software in the world. Now, when I think about it from a rehab perspective, I distill the value case down to scale and geometry, network, planning, and people. Now, scale and geometry, you got what you got. You can't change that. You sort of just got to work with what's there. So it doesn't suit every site, but my gosh, there are a lot of legacy sites around Australia that are crying out for a solution like this. Network, planning, and people are all positions that Thiess can bring system capabilities to help you with and plug into your project. If you're happy to have your ear chewed off about autonomy and rehab and how it could work, please grab me for a beer after this, or a coffee at some point, and I will oblige. Final piece, partnerships. So Thiess's wheelhouse, what we do is well established in really deep skills in mine planning, geology, geotech, survey, environmental services. But closure's a lot broader than that, and there's specialist up and downstream services that we don't typically have in our book. And what we've found is that's pulling us to collaborate on closure feasibility studies and early contractor involvement consulting scenarios. And through that process, what I've seen is that there's a really clear merit case for involving a contractor in those type of works. And I'll reference an example from this year with Mount Rawdon Pumped Hydro, where we've been assisting and collaborating on the feasibility project with Evolution, ICA and CleanCo with the Queensland Government. having an execution-capable partner in to validate pricing, operational sequencing has been invaluable and helps big surprises be avoided at the back end of the project. So if this is something that sounds like it might be of value to you, please again, reach out. And the final piece, but by no means the least important, is one that we spent a lot of time on over the last few years, which is developing and co-designing traditional owner partnership models with traditional owner groups and traditional owner businesses in the regions that we operate. Now, this is very much a case-by-case scenario, but our general vision that sits behind this is a model that encompasses genuine traditional owner representation and leadership into a service that can also provide Tier 1 mining services capabilities. Now, in the works with groups that we've been doing this year, this has really taught me that we probably need to rethink as Thiess and collectively as an industry, challenge ourselves to be flexible about how we think about partnership so that we can share that leadership and values and learn from each other in how we develop those partnerships. This will be critically important to rehab, but more collectively mine closure in the next 50 years, and something that we'll be continuing to work on as a business. I'm sure many others will also. Thank you for sticking with me. I've been Johnny Miln from Thiess Rehab. I love to talk about rehab and all aspects. So I'm around again tomorrow, and if you want to catch up, please, that's my contact details on the QR code, but you can find me through the app as well. Thank you.